Ego is my identity of myself as I perceive it within me and as I project it to the outside world. In other words, how I would like to be perceived by other people. What impression am I giving of myself to other people? Sometimes the ego personality or persona is so big, it becomes so huge, it gets so used to being fed. The persona, the personality becomes so big that it becomes an archetype of some sort. It could be a mother, could be a friend, a spouse, that you cannot come in the way, resist, or stop the onslaught of that egotist personality or archetype, that it is bigger than itself. And somehow we allow ourselves to be abused subtly or overtly by these egomaniacs because they have some sort of control over you, whether it is job related, whether it is codependency in terms of roommates or housemates, or it could be verbal, emotional, mental, and then you give in. The question is, do you have to? In the name of so-called love, do you have to give in to this petulant child? Ego is in some way a survival mechanism. So when we are feeding into someone's ego, we are just feeding into that childlike behavior. No, this is not inner child work, and they have to heal themselves. These people have to heal themselves. By giving into their ego, we are giving into that petulant ziddi bacha. When I say no to that ego, I'm truly saying, I love me, and I'm telling that person, I love you, because I'm not giving into and feeding into your ego. वो ईगो के चक्कर में लोग मरने मराने पे आ जाते हैं जी, willing to give up your own life and willing to impact somebody's life in a very negative way, overtly, covertly, knowingly, unknowingly, unbeknowingly, whatever it is. The ego has no friend. The ego is the most selfish thing. Yes, we all need it. What do we do with this now? Consider this ego as a bit of impurity that is necessary. 24 karats gold, we know it's not very useful because it is too malleable. It doesn't hold its form very well as an ornament. So you need to put some copper or some other coat, some impurity in it. Let's call that coat impurity as an ego. To keep ego in check is the word. Egolessness is not possible and it's not necessary, but to keep it in check. Neither let it inflate too much or deflate too much. Inflation of ego, we all know examples in our lives. Let's talk about the inverse of it, which is the deflation. Oh, I'm such a horrible person. That's also ego, isn't it? And we have gone through it ourselves. I've gone through it myself in the both phases of it, both the inflation and the deflation. And the inflation part is a very self-righteous kind of, I deserve it, I want it, I demand it. And if I don't get it, the price to be paid for preserving that ego could be 10 times the actual. Doesn't care. In some way, this ego is like coronavirus. It is a non-living entity. Maintain some distance from it, from your own ego. I need to maintain distance from my own ego and maintain distance from other people's ego. Number one, keep it at bay, Wash your hands. Keep yourself ego free every day. Just a little bit. Elsewhere, I've mentioned about how to get rid of ego, whether it is namasmarna or meditation or surrender meditation or various other things, or seva. Keep yourself a bit ego free every single day. And lastly, most importantly, what is the best antidote for this coronavirus? In this case, we're saying ego, right? Build your own immune system. And what is our immune system in the spiritual level? Put your high C in charge. Ground your higher consciousness as king. Feed your true self, not your ego self. Feed your true self, which is your higher consciousness, and not your ego self, which is a figment of your mind. When I am feeding or being fed by my higher consciousness, God, I love me.